morning. Thinking back on our initial learning target here, what we're trying to do is we were trying to revisit and discuss aspects of POP so that we can dig deeper and synthesize our experience with outside research. I hope that the 3-column notes organizer was helpful toward doing that, and I hope that you guys felt that your discussions were as vibrant as what I perceived as I was walking around. What we are going to do next, and keep in mind that I mentioned earlier, tomorrow we are going to write, and we are going to write a Peel-style paragraph. And there will be supports there, there will be examples that you'll see and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be about POP, so it's going to be about what we focused on today. And there hopefully will be Chromebooks available. I need to set that up with Emily and talk about that. And you guys will put those back in your shared folders, just like you did during the first week of school, where you guys wrote that initial paragraph on feedback for me, and then I gave you feedback on your feedback paragraph, which is a little weird, but it was fun. So that is what we are going to be doing tomorrow. And our purpose for doing that is twofold. One, we're going to be synthesizing all this information, all our thoughts on POP and our own experiences with the information that we read and discussed and inferred and questioned today. But then also, we're going to get a stronger sense of what is it like to be a student who has to do a writing exercise or a writing prompt and has to do it in the Peel format. What does that feel like? Okay. But anyway, before you go today, a couple of things. For our closure, there are 2 questions for you, and you're going to answer them on your yellow sheet or on your buff sheet. If you notice there's a spot down at the bottom of your organizer that is blank, what I'd like you to do in that space, right at the bottom of your sheet, is please write point, just up in the corner of it or something like that, and leave yourself some space. Because you're going to be thinking about, based on the information that you gathered, do you see a link between that information, or do you see a link between your connections, maybe, where it says you're thinking? I was talking to Caitlin, and Caitlin and also Christy, they were having a discussion about, do they see any connections between their thinking or between their evidence or something like that. Christy said yes, all of it was pointing in one direction, and it seemed to all be pointing back in the direction of the students. Is that right, Christy? Yeah. Keeping our focus on students. So all of her evidence was leaning toward that. So probably Christy's point is going to be around the importance of keeping the students in mind, and that being the ultimate reason for why we go through this POP process in the first place, is to improve student achievement, right? And then also, Caitlin was noticing some connections too between her evidence, but not necessarily between every single piece. And keep in mind, students have to make these choices too, right? They had various sources for writing prompt number 1 that they had to sift through and make decisions as to which pieces of evidence from which source fit together. What point can I make around those pieces of evidence to then write a paragraph on? Not necessarily everything fits, right? So you have to make decisions on what is kind of like an outlier that doesn't go along with this stuff, but then which 2 or 3 pieces of evidence kind of gel together toward creating a point. Okay? But first, on the back of your yellow page, if you could flip that over for me. And then also, if you need to, let's go ahead and move back to our seats, in fact, before we do this. Please go ahead and move back to your initial seat.
I know which one you are.
Okay. So, on the back of your buff colored piece of paper, the first thing that I would like you to do is to look back at your New Year's resolutions that you initially wrote. And I'd like you to think about how does your initial thinking in your resolutions connect with the information from the appointments? Is there any connection that you can find between your New Year's resolutions and some of the things that you read about today as you were going through your appointment times? Or maybe something came up as a topic of discussion as you were working with your partner. Okay, so that's your first question. Please answer that on the back of your yellow piece of paper. What connection can you make between your New Year's resolutions, maybe just one of them, maybe loosely, and the information that you were discussing today? Is there any connection there? Even if it's very loose, and you could just write down, one of my New Year's resolutions was blah, 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 blah. This sort of connects to the thing we were talking about blah, 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 because what? Okay. And then, on the front side of your paper here, in this box right here, if it'll fit. If not, you can put it on the back as long as you mark it. I don't care. But I am going to be collecting these from you before you leave today. I want to take a look and see what you guys did today, what you thought was important, and then also I'm very curious to see what your point might be that you come up with, okay? So in this space here, you're going to craft a point based on the evidence that you pulled or based on your thinking in this column here. How does it kind of go together? When you're putting it together, is there a common connection between them that you can craft a point about? What point can you make around the evidence and the thinking that you did today? And please write that as one sentence down in here.
Asian position. Anything like that?
For now, it doesn't have to be anything that formal. But just what point do you think you could make? And yes, this is in preparation for our writing tomorrow. You're thinking too much. What do you think you could prove about how this information connects with your own experiences and thinking? And notice, we didn't have a point in mind in the first place, right? We're looking at our evidence and then constructing a point based on that evidence, not in reverse. It would be much harder in reverse if we had a set idea in mind that we were going to write to and then trying to find information that supported that. That typically doesn't work.
What's yours called? Things here and there. Like this week we're having, but it's not like a structured